what I'll say, as we do these back to basic trainings, just remember again, when it boils down to it, these meetings are for you guys. They're meetings for if you have questions. It's not meant to be, a lecture and me standing on a podium, so to speak, but the opportunity for you guys to ask questions. Uh, let's talk case design. Let's talk process. Let's talk product. So if you have questions on specific product that you want to learn a little bit more about, I'm sure you're not the only one. And I think that's the big thing that we want to do in these type of calls. So feel free to ask questions throughout the process. Again, for those of you who run agencies and you want to make sure your team is on, just tell them to register and we'll get them set up so they can be on. That's why I did it late, so it's easier for us to gather people all across the country. So think about it. We'll kind of dive into something pretty easy to start the conversation with. What I would say is that last week we talked about term insurance, the real basic stuff with term insurance, and living benefits was another opportunity that we talked about. And I always challenge people because when we get on these calls, the idea that we have here is advantageous to help people understand what you have at your fingertips. But it's almost like going into using football as the analogy. It's almost like going into a huddle and figuring out a play, but just staying in the huddle and not actually executing. So I always say that as we do these trainings, as we do these meetings, you think about action steps, you think about opportunities to really take advantage of, what we talk about. So I always say, think of three clients, that can kind of meet the subject or the conversation that we had, and then ultimately move from there. So we talked last week again about term insurance, mortgage protection, you know, kids, you got a job, any one of those three or all of those three should have a conversation around term insurance. 10 times your income, mortgage, whatever's left, as well as, about 150,000 per kid for college. So that's a real easy and streamlined way to think about the opportunity when it comes to doing mortgage protection or income protection, things like that. So it's one thing to get that all set up. The next thing is how do you submit the business? So I think that's pretty important to understand is there's a couple things that I'll actually kind of point out, and I seem to have lost my handy dandy pen, but I'll actually share with you this whiteboard real quick. Pivot for 1 second and share um, a couple things. So, terminology or phraseology in the industry. We'll do that real quick before we talk about submitting business. So, just thumbs up if you can see the whiteboard. All right. So, when we think about the industry, and actually, so let's say you're a brand new agent and you just get your license, okay? There's one thing that you have, and it's first off, there's two sides of the coin. First side is getting your license, and apologies for the bad handwriting, okay? And then there's an appointment, okay? So there's two different ways that you have to go about this, and it goes step by step. So license is done with the state, okay? In order for you to solicit business, you have to get a life insurance license inside of the specific state. So I live in Tennessee. I have a resident license in the state of Tennessee. Now, on the other side of the coin, we talk about appointments. In this scenario, you want to get appointed with, let's say, AIG. Okay. So there's the first step is getting appointed in the state where you're trying to solicit business. And then the second step is actually getting appointed with the carrier. Okay. Now, if I were to say talk to John, John lives in Georgia. I do not live in Georgia, but I want to solicit business. If I do not have a non-resident in that state, I cannot get appointed and sell the product. It's technically illegal, or not illegal, but they will not push it through. So what happens is I have to make sure that I go through and get my non-resident before I actually get appointed and then submit the business. Okay? So the big thing is always getting appointed first in the state where you're going to sell the business. And then at that point, you would get appointed with the carrier. So there's license and then appointment. Okay? Now, there's a bit of a monkey wrench. And what I'll say is that monkey wrench is if, for example's sake, you own or have an LLC. Okay. So I'm putting it under the license side for that very specific reason, because in this process, if, for example's sake, I want to sell and I want my commissions to go to my LLC, it's a two-step process. So you're actually paying, so in Tennessee, it's like $50. In Tennessee, it's $50. I have to pay for my state license as an individual, and then I have to pay for my LLC license to accept commissions legally on behalf of my solicitation of the sale. So anytime you talk to a client that is in your state or in a different state, for example's sake, so I want to solicit Georgia, I have to get appointed first as a non-resident in that state to sell. And then after that gets fully approved, I then would get my license appointment done for my LLC as a business entity inside that state. And then after all that is done, then I go for the appointment with the carrier so I'm allowed to sell their product. Now, I know this seems very remedial, but a lot of people miss this part and it ends up delaying the process for the client and it delays the process for you to, sell the product. So, before I move on, does anyone have any questions about this?
Yeah, so just to kind of clarify, say I have somebody who not necessarily that I solicit, but they reach out to me in another state, I would
Yep.
have to get a non-resident license to sell to them.
That is correct. So, because you're not technically licensed in that state, when you think about the NAIC, it's National Associations of Insurance Commissioners. I think I got that right. But they each have one in a different state. So you have to abide by the rules of the state in order to be able to legally sell something to their people in their state. Georgia's a good example. I think you have to get fingerprinted, or Florida, it's one of the two, where you actually have to get fingerprinted in order to get
It's
an
Florida.
appointment. It
It's
is
Florida.
Florida. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought so. So it's a real pain in the butt. There's some more expensive states too. So like New Jersey, it's like $300. Illinois is expensive too. California is a real pain in the keister. So I have Valor Financial Specialists, and in California, they said you can't have the word financial and specialists together. So I was like, okay. I said, well, make it Valor Financial Agency. Like, you can't do that either. It's too, whatever. So I was like, okay. And I went through like four iterations. And every time you talk to California, it's like a 3 week span of time and they take their sweet time. So finally, it's like Valor Financial and Insurance Agency or something like that is what I do business in California when I have to do business in California. So it can be rather tedious. What you always want to do, and what I always do, depending on the state that you're in, I always go and make sure that if I'm about to do a consultation with someone, I'll check my licenses. So you can look at your licenses on Nipper, NIPR.com. Some states you have to use Circon, but you should be able to see all your existing licenses. And you can renew them here, apply for the licenses. Once again, the step-by-step process is you start with personal, and then if you have an LLC, then you do the LLC. And I usually wouldn't recommend the LLC unless you're hitting like six figures or, obviously seek a CPA first. But if you're brand new to the business and you're doing like maybe $10,000 a year, not really worth, getting an LLC right off the bat. So just, food for thought. You can always change it later on. Not a big deal, but I would say just get your feet wet. You don't have to go forward with the LLC right off the bat. And always, always, always seek, advice from a CPA, someone along those lines who knows the legal ramifications and opportunity. Like my former CPA, turned us into an S corp, not realizing, or they probably did realize, but there's better value in an LLC inside the state of Tennessee for some reason. But in any event, it's neither here nor there. It's not about me. So the trick of the trade now is just, again, going through the simple mechanics of understanding licensing. The next step, as we talked about, is appointments. Now, appointment process is pretty easy to do. And the cool thing is that if you're in any state but Pennsylvania, you can get appointed and submit the business the exact same day. Okay. Pennsylvania is what you call a pre-appointment state, but everywhere else is called on-time appointment. So if, for example's sake, I'm using Three Mark Financial again, we go through Three Mark for the multi-carrier stuff. Some of us have the direct contract with, Corebridge, some do it through Three Mark. Either way is fine. But so say for example's sake, I go to tools and resources and we go to online contracting. Okay. So online contracting will bring us here, and then we click on contract with SureLC, and it'll bring you in, and you'll see the Three Mark Financial. The link that I send out says Valor Financial, so it just depends on, which link you got. There's a few SureLCs out there. So for example's sake, like as you see when I click here, I've got a few different logins for SureLC because I have one for health, I have one for this, I have one for my direct contracts with AIG and a few others. So there's a few different SureLCs which you can use the same email address, but you can't use the same password. So I'm going to hope that this is the right. I'm going to use this one because I think this is the right one for me. I'm going to hit login anyway because I don't want to change my password. Okay, so you'll see here if you're newer to the industry, first time logging into SureLC, you want to make sure that all the red is gone. So contact info, you have your contact info here. It already pre-filled my NPN number, date of birth, because that was all drafted from NIPR when I submitted my initial profiling. Doing business as, you'll see here that I'm set up as a license only agent simply because I have all my money going to the business entity that my wife owns. So my wife is the owner of Valor. We're actually 50-50 now, but I have all of my commissions going to Valor. When you see this, individual pays you directly to your social. Think of it paying directly to your social security number. if you have a business entity on your behalf. So if you're not the principal, for example's sake, of your organization, that's why I have LOA. But if you are the principal, for example's sake, you'd set it up as a business entity. But the big thing that people get kind of confused on is when you have, say, doing business as a business entity, you'll see another drop down here for banking info. The banking info will then talk about, for example's sake, let's say I, Phil Resch, am doing business as Valor. Valor should have its own checking account. I can't have a Phil Resch checking account with doing business as Valor. They have to match. So if they don't, you'll get a little red button here and you won't be able to submit contracting. The big ones really from this standpoint would be, your CE and training. You always want to make sure you're compliant and up to date. You can do it on LIMRA for free, anti-money laundering on LIMRA for free. And then you have your best interest. When you talk about selling annuities, you want to make sure that you're up to snuff on your best interest. And I know California just came out with a new one, but I don't plan on selling in California anytime soon. Ironically, I had to actually take a proctored exam to sell an index annuity in Iowa. So some states have some really funky rules, but it is what it is. Again, you have your E&O that you have to renew every single year. And then we got requests. So requests here. So say for example's sake, I already got Cincinnati Life, so I'm just gonna say I'm gonna discard this. But what you'll see here is you have a whole wonderland of opportunity. You've got, all these carriers under the sun. So I'd highly recommend, as we go through the process, like, for what we do with Valor, we have like a core five. You don't have to get every single carrier here. Reason why, I literally got one of my agents today who messaged me, says, Phil, F&G just sent me a letter saying they're canceling my contract. And it's just due to inactive, behavior. So if you're not going to sell them, they're going to cancel the appointment because they don't want the liability, and it costs them money to keep these appointments running. So let's say, for example's sake, I'm going to go North American. North American, I'm going to click on contract here, and then I'm going to hit next. Now it's going to pull up everything from Nipper. Like, so I have appointments in all of these states, and I'm just going to do fixed life and fixed annuity. And then I'm just going to do Tennessee for right now. But let's say I had a client who I was ready to sell in, say, Georgia. I would click on Georgia as well. But I just want to get it set up for Tennessee at this point in time. I already had North American, but I didn't sell them, for 6 months, so they kicked me out. So I'm just going to apply for it again. Keep in mind here too, that we don't charge for getting appointments. So because we'll talk about the on-time appointment thing, you'll realize that you don't need to just get a bunch of carriers under your belt just to say you have them. But I'm just going to go through the process here so you can see it real quick. AML course by Limra, blah 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 blah. All right, I'm good there. I'm not selling LTC riders with them because they don't have LTC riders. I click next. I've got my E&O done. And then it asks the carrier questions. I don't have any business pending yet. None of the life. I do a test that I read everything, of course. And I have not had any felonies, any issues per se, no litigations, no bankruptcies. Testing, I read the manual, of course. Of course I did. Then we'll hit next, and you go all the way down once you get your information. So hit OK, go all the way down, and then apply my signature. And I am done with that. I have submitted the contracting. So because Tennessee is an on-time appointment state, now let's say I had someone who wanted to get North American term insurance. Well, I can go right in here under tools and resources, go to forms and iGo, launch forms and iGo. I go EAP, log in. I'm gonna hit start a new case. And let's just say we're gonna do good old Phil Resch, 12, 22, 1981. Okay, in Tennessee. And I'm gonna do term insurance. Now here, you'll see a whole breadth of carriers, okay? So you got the whole slew of them here. But I'm going to go down to North American, their Advantage Gen 9, and I'm going to hit select. Now, again, I'm not technically appointed with them right now. I just submitted the contracting. But because I live in Tennessee, I can do an on time appointment. I click next. And where they'll get you is a situation of asking on the agent information. I'll come back to this other part in a second. But the agent information, it'll ask, see, it has my old code there. But if it didn't, what you would put in was your social. You'd either put in your social or you could put pending, and things like that. If your agent code is pending, check this box and it does it for you. Because what happens is behind the scenes, 3Mark is taking all of your paperwork electronically, and then they're stacking the application and sending it all in together. So today is January 15th. What would happen is North American would code your code on January 14th with the appointment, and then your application signature dates are January 15th. So it's going to set it up so you will be appointed on time to sell the business. So you'll stay within the confines of what the insurance commissioners need from a legal standpoint. So I'll pause for a second there. Does anyone have any questions about on-time appointments, pre-appointments, or the sure I'll see.
Does Georgia do that as well?
Georgia is an on-time appointment state, so you do not have to get appointed with a ton of carriers right off the bat. You can get appointed when you need the carrier. So oftentimes, if we're running illustrations and we want to see, which is the best, and all of a sudden we're like, oh shoot, I'm not appointed with that carrier. You can get appointed quickly the same day, and you can submit the business the exact same day. So there should be no problem there.
Okay, and also, how do we go about figuring out which would be the best to go with?
That's a great question. So if are we talking uh so basics like term insurance, I can show you um uh, so if we're going to talk things like term insurance, I can show you that real quickly. Jose, do you have a specific client that you have in mind by any chance? And we could do a live study or just thinking off the top of your head
I'm
from that
I'm
standpoint.
just I'm just going off the top of my head. I don't have anybody currently.
All right. Well, why don't we use you as a test dummy? You okay with that?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
All right. So, and this is kind of what I do when it comes to talking to clients. So if we think about it from the perspective of, if I were to say to you, Jose, if you could picture in your head, your income, your annual income, bonuses and everything, and multiply that by 10, add your mortgage if you have one, and however many kids you have, at 150,000 per kid, what would that number be? And so just play it out with me. Give me a number.
Um, I didn't have time to add all that up, but let's just say 800,000.
800,000. Okay. And I would say the next question that I always tell people is, if you had the ability, there's two options that you can do. One is you can rent your coverage and protection, or you could buy it. Okay. Now, renting, think of it like an apartment. It's going to cost a lot less. You don't really, you have access or rights to that, coverage for a duration of time. And then once you decide to move out, you don't bring anything with you. Okay. On the flip side, if you buy it, it's going to cost more, but you build equity inside of that process and the opportunity for it to actually help you in the long run because you own the policy for life. Those are two different options we can explore. Which one do you think you would value at this point in time?
I'm pretty young. Let's go ahead and say that I'm gonna buy the policy.
You're gonna buy the policy. Okay. So if we go into, so the quotes here, you got WinFlex Web. And what we could look at is a combination. The next question I would have really too is, what do you think you could afford from let's say a monthly budget?
It's recording.
Mm,
He's recording.
Yeah, I'm recording.
I did.
So from a monthly budget standpoint, what do you think is the most you could put towards this type of coverage?
Um, let's say 250.
250. Okay, we're going to do a couple things here, and we're going to take a look at this from two perspectives. So, Jose, how old are you?
31.
31. What's your date of birth, if you don't mind?
January 16th, 93.
So, are you going to be 32 tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
All right, happy birthday, one.
Thank you.
But two, most carriers will look at you as 32. Okay.
Right.
So if, for example's sake, we look at this, and I'm going to look at because you're young enough, as you can see, carriers have two different types of permanent products. Okay. There's an accumulation product and there's a protection product. Now, when you look at the way these products are designed, you have one that's designed for growth and cash accumulation, hence the name. And then you have protection. So death benefit is the primary focus. Okay.
Right.
Now, for someone at your age, if I were to put all of that 800,000 into a permanent plan, I feel like I'd be doing you a disservice. Okay. And the reason why is because you're young enough, we can get you a dirt cheap term policy to protect in case things go bump in the night. But if we could also provide a value proposition for you to get, say, tax-free retirement income, would that interest you?
Yes.
Okay.
Just about to talk.
So what we do here is we'll run through a scenario and I'll increase this. All right, it's big enough, I think. So we'll say um 01 16 1993 1993. Okay. And let's say, for example's sake, if I were to ask you your health, one being you have one foot in the grave, 10 being, you're about to run a marathon, what would you rank your health at?
I'd say about a 7.
And why would you say a seven?
Um, I'm mostly pretty healthy, but I'm overweight.
All right. I like to say well insulated.
Yes, sir.
So, so what I would say is this is a non-invasive way to ask someone what you got, right? What's your health issues? So if you say you're overweight, what I would recommend is starting at standard non-tobacco. Okay. The risk classes above, preferred and preferred plus, are going to give you more cost-efficient pricing. However, if I want to set the right expectations, under promise and over deliver, I would rather start at standard non-tobacco, and if you get better, you get better. So you already told me you live in Georgia, and here, because you're so young, we're going to look for solving for the face amount. We want the least amount of death benefit for $250 per month. And what I would say is that because you're 32, I would say we have probably about a 30-year horizon for something like this. So that would get us right up into the early 60s. Unless, do you have hopes and grandeur of retiring in your 50s?
I mean, that would be great, but I don't plan on that.
Okay. Okay. So we'll stick with 250 for right now. I'm a big fan of diversification. This is a different story for a different day, but I'm just going to diversify the indexes. It gives you a better, actual return versus what you'll see on paper. Anytime you do an accumulation sale, you want to have increasing for the amount of years that you're funding, and then you want to levelize it after when you stop funding. For those who don't understand why, increasing does cost more. However, when you do an increasing policy and you're doing a minimum face, it will bring down the death benefit as low as possible to give you as much accumulation as possible with less fees. Once you stop funding it, though, if you kept it at increasing, it would cost more. That's why you flip it to level. This is something that the customer would do. It is not something we as uh, or the insurance companies would automatically do. So just kind of understand that that is something that you would have to talk about with your customer long term. We'll show income here. So let's just say, by age 64, we're not showing anything, and then 865 to 89, which will show up about 66 to 90 on the illustration. This is an income sale. Okay, so 30 years of funding at 250 bucks. Now, I am a big fan of diversifying by showing multiple carriers. I have a core group of carriers that I like to show. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to hit copy. Okay. Now we got two Jose's, but they're both the Partners Group product. So I'm going to hit change product here. And then I'm going to go with F&G. So we'll look at their path setter. Their path setter, this is a company that is only focused on income. They have non-med, true non-med up to 1 million, up to age 60. And yeah, no lab work at all. So some people like that. Now I it pulled over most of the information, but you'll see here there's a bunch of stuff that they don't like that we got to fix. And then I got to add my address. So um, F&G only has two rates, non-smoker and preferred, and not in the smoker class. So we'll stick with non-smoker. They're technically considering you 31, but if we didn't submit the application today, I don't want to give a false expectation, so I'm going to say 32. They are an age last company. Minimum no mech, 30 years at 250 bucks a month. We're going to reduce the death benefit to minimum in year 30. They already diversified a little bit, so you have these, but I am not a fan of the Morgan Stanley. I'm okay with BlackRock, but I also like just having S&P. The S&P has a 12% cap here, so it's a pretty solid cap. And I'm always a fan of just having the S&P inside of any design. We got the age here. The age is accurate. We got everything flowing the way it should. It's on monthly bank draft, increasing for the 30 years. Riders, we're good there. Agent info, I just have to add, let's see if I have my info in here. Yep. So add all the goodies. All right. So I'll add it up here too. So what we're doing is we're kind of building the foundation of a cake, when you look at this. So obviously I'm spending more time explaining it as opposed to what you would do with a consumer. So as you would get ramped up, as you would eventually become and find your core favorites, so to speak, you can rely on people like myself to run these and help out. So you'll see I hit copy again, and I got another one of you here. I'm going to hit change product. And, for the sake of time, I'll just do like say two more. I like Symetra. Symetra has a pretty good product. especially for accumulation. It's the accumulator. So once again, accumulator, not their variable, their IUL. Update client, standard non-tobacco, 32. Indexing. So here they don't do that. I'll do 50 in the Putnam and 50 here in the S&P. Solve for, they've got all that taken care of. Disbursements, they've got that all taken care of. So again, it's just a matter of checking through the scenarios to make sure everything makes sense before you go through and put it all together. I'll add one more, as I mentioned before. And let's put in North American because my wife doesn't have it on here yet. So never mind. We'll go and add, let's go with Allianz. The Pro Plus is gone. The Allianz Accumulator is their new one. We'll click on this. And once again, fix errors. So I'll go through. They are an age last company as well. So I will change you to 32 here. Minimum face, max accumulation, 250. Disbursements, we have that. It's all accurate. And that we're good. Policy options, 1 to 30.
You do some work like walking or something physical.
And they diversify it too. 25%. We can go through, Allianz at a later date and why they do all that. So now I've got 4 companies. So when someone asks you, did you do your research? Did you look at several companies? Absolutely. I'm a broker for you. I don't work for an insurance company. So I have 4 companies here. And if I hit calculate over here, it's only going to calculate Allianz. If I hit select all, so all these are checked, calculate here, all 4 of them are going to go. Work smarter, not harder, right? So,
Absolutely.
yep. Now, so again, Jose, what we have here is 250. This is going towards more of an income solve. Then what we want to do is figure out the math of how much it would cost you to figure out the difference between this will probably be somewhere in the 100,000 range. So we would probably want 750,000 in term insurance to go along with this, which will probably be like another $50 a month or $20 a month or something like that. It's
Okay.
dirt cheap. So we'll take a gander at this goose, and then I'll show some benefits of Partners Group product, for example's sake, is a really cool benefit. But yeah, so what you'll see here is the minimum face amount for Symetra, 100,000. Minimum for Allianz is 100,000. But for F&G and the Partners Group product, their minimum face is 50K. So once again, they're trying to find the least amount of death benefit possible to give you the most amount of cash accumulation for $250 a month. So if we look here, just a quick glance through, and I say quick because there's like 10,000 pages to these, but you fund for roughly 30 years or $90,000. You've invested 90,000 and at a varying rate of return, you have about $230,000 in accumulation. So now, starting at 65 with Symetra, you'd be pulling out about $23,500 a year or about $2,000 a month in tax-free income off of that $250 a month. So that's one company. Then you got Allianz. And they put those usually up front. It takes a second for them to load it up. So you'll see here 3,000, 3,000, and now you got 29 grand. So they got a little bit more. And you put in 90,000, then by the age of say 90, you've received a total of 732,000 in tax-free income. Now looking at F&G, you would think that because they have a lower face amount, some might say, oh, well, I'm not going to get as much money, but it actually can help you because you're not hindered by a limitation of the lowest face amount of the carrier. Now we go down to 69,000 and you're at about the same as Allianz. So to be quite frank, it's a toss up. If it was between Allianz and F&G, on this one, I would pick F&G because Allianz on a monthly basis, there's a thing called sweep dates, and Allianz only has one sweep date, so that's one bucket. So if you'd paid 11 sequential months after, all of those go in a fixed account until the next year, and then it goes in the market. With F&G, they give you 12 buckets or 12 earning potential opportunities. So that's why I like F&G better. And then we'll look at the Partners Group product here. Not counting them out, I'm just saying. So I would say right now the lead pony, if you will, is F&G. But then if we look at the income that you get from Corebridge, you're at about 25,000. So 25,523 would be the amount that you would get from them. So I would say, in the grand scheme of things, you have, I would say F&G first. I would actually say AIG second because once again, Allianz, if you're doing monthly, they're only going to give you one sweep date. F&G and AIG will give you 12 sweep dates here. Now, if I wanted to, I could then take this information. So let's get rid of Symmetra and let's get rid of Allianz. Okay. So we have these two. F&G does not do term insurance. AIG does. So there's two things you could do. First off, AIG is the only company that has this QOL advantage. So I can actually buy, for example's sake, let's just say, you need another 750,000 in term insurance, and we'll match it with 30 years to go along with the premium payments here. And we'll recalculate that, but what I'm also going to do is just do a separate, actually, I don't need to do a separate term policy. I can figure it out from here. So we'll run this, and you can do the simple math. I'll share with you here. AIG gives you a discount for buying two products together at the same time. So if you bought a permanent policy and a term, they're going to waive the policy fee for the term. If you buy multiple terms, like say up to five, they'll waive the policy fee for all subsequent terms. So if I click here now, and we're going to go all the way down, almost all the way down. And we're going to go right here to this separator. As you see, QOL Advantage. It's a multi-policy premium discount program. So you'll see here that if we did a $750,000 policy for 30 years, it normally would be $94 a month for 750,000. You're saving about $6 per month or $75, $76 per year, and that would be your total premium if you bought the two together. If you bought the F&G, it would be 250 plus 9405. So you save a little bit of money by buying the two together under one umbrella, but if you want to pick and choose, either way is fine. But that's something that I would say if you talk to someone, Jose, going back to your question, if you talk to someone who is questioning whether they want perm or term, or a combination of both, it's understanding the client, understanding their need, and then there's a lot more fact-finding questions that we would kind of dive into. But did that help?
Yes, sir. It did. It did.
Okay. And a lot of this is going to take time to understand, to learn, to grow. That's why you have mentorship and guidance. Obviously, I'm here to help as well, any way that I can. So, but this is kind of a good exercise to see, income type solves. I would say next week we'll talk a little bit more on the differences because, like, going back and peeling back the onion on how IULs work, the function and the structure of them is important. So we'll definitely dive into that as well, and kind of peel back the onion on the product too. But because you raised such a great question, I figured it would be worth going into and diving into. So I hope other people, found value in that too. Um, so. I saw my application timed out for North American because again we started out talking about non-resident and resident licenses, LLCs, on-time appointments. Any questions on what I've done so far, or other questions that you may have that you're just dying to know?
If you
Um,
have a, if you get a non-residence license, but you're already appointed with the carrier, um, how does that, is that a smooth transition, or how does that work?
That's a great question, Tia. You're in Alabama, right? I can't
I
remember.
am.
Yeah, so you're in Alabama, you got appointed with, say, National Life Group in Alabama, and then all of a sudden you have a client in Tennessee who wants some coverage. So you get your non-resident with Tennessee, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The appointment will be automatic. So then you could just
Okay.
submit the business and they'll appoint you in Tennessee with the
Okay.
carrier. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's very
Okay.
easy. The main thing always, except for Pennsylvania, that's the asterisk, if you will. The main thing with every state is making sure that you actually have that state non-resident or resident license, and then after that, everything will follow through like dominoes. So they'll all work.
Got
So
it.
yeah, great question though, because that does come up. A lot of people think it's more important to get the appointment with the carrier, and it's not. The appointment with the carrier is an afterthought, as long as you have your non-resident or resident license. So that's the most important part.
Got it.
Good question. I saw someone else had a question too.
yeah, so mine is a bit unrelated. I asked another agent and he kind of circled around it, but I didn't get a definite answer from him.
Yeah.
Let's say I have a friend and he knows a bunch of people, he networks and stuff. If he were to recommend people to see me, would count as controlled business or no?
Yeah, I mean, so you're saying like in regards to controlled business, you're saying like if I write an application on myself kind of thing or
Right.
uh
So like
yeah.
if I were to run an application on, let's say, any of my friends or family, that would be controlled business. But
Mhm.
let's say they were like friends of friends. Would
Yeah.
that extend to them as well?
In both cases, it's fine for you to write the business. There are other multi-level marketing groups and stuff like that who will try and recruit you in and say you can't write your own case because they're trying to write the case on you because they want to get commission off of selling you the product, as opposed to you getting your own license and writing your own case, they lose out on the business. So it's often a tactic you'll see in multi-level marketing groups to try and lure people in, but say, hey, you can't write on yourself. It even says it in the manual. Well, I'll tell you right now, I wrote my own case on myself, my wife, and my two boys. It processed perfectly fine. Everyone has coverage, and there's no issues at all. So the bigger issue is, in regards to controlled business, where carriers don't like seeing it is when you write a large egregious policy on yourself or your loved ones that doesn't make fiscal sense. So a good example of that would be if I, Phil Resch, have two boys, 16 and 13. I have $1 million of coverage on myself. My wife has $1 million of coverage. And if I then decided, hey, I think my boys need $2 million of coverage, then it would look very fishy from the carrier standpoint. It would also create an adverse risk for the boys. So I'm giving you a long-winded answer to say doesn't matter if someone brings you clients or you are soliciting friends and family. Those are okay for you to sell. But just again, I always tell people just make sure within the confines of how you're selling, that everyone understands, the rules of the road, and field underwriting is just a big part of that a lot of people, forget. So like if I were talking to you from a standpoint of say an organization I used to sell to, wholesale to, they would have said, well, you should probably get 500,000 in permanent and 500,000 in term, and because they're trying to raise the target premiums up for themselves. So this is a true way of doing it. Minimum face, no mech. You don't make as much as an agent, but it's more or less opportune for the client. And if you do right by the client, you're going to get more clients. That's just the end all be all. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So I hate to say it, but wholesaling for, over 15 years, you see a lot of, things. I'll just put it nicely. You see a lot of things. And and that's why, I'm doing this. I want to make sure that people understand the moral and ethical side. We have a noble profession. Let's keep it that way. And yeah, I mean, like I could take these two numbers for F&G and AIG and put it up to 100,000 or 150, and you still wouldn't see a major difference in income. Increase targets, for me as a producer. There are some benefits to doing that though. Like, you're only 32, you're going to put more money into it later. We're giving you that buffered space. So if you have that explanation with the client, I don't see an issue with that. But there are some people who just say, "Oh, well, you need 500,000 in permanent," and that's not the case. So we want to make sure that it's leveraged appropriately for the consumers. Also, kind of considering age of clients. You talk about growth strategies with these type of products. Some people might not want a growth strategy. Like I did a protection product because it has an ROP um, at year 25, and I'm okay with that. I don't need an accumulation product. I'm good elsewhere. So again, it also goes back to the needs of the client. So I did make a generalization in showing income, but at 32, I figured it might make a lot of sense. So that's my years of experience assuming things. So I could be wrong.
Right. Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, controlled business is an interesting topic. There are people who will try and make excuses as to why, you shouldn't write on your own family and stuff like that, and they should write it and this and that. So I would just stay away from like leery conversations around that. If you're providing a value proposition, if you're an expert, why should you have someone else write it because it's your family member? Makes no sense.
Right. Okay. Yeah, my concern was just with like the state regulations as far as writing a certain percentage of controlled business. So I just wanted to be 100% clear on what constitutes controlled business.
Yeah, they won't like, I mean, you only have so many, friends and family. So in regards to controlled business, people are gonna usually run through their friends and family first, right? So I
Right.
think overall, the state's not going to sit there. The insurance commissioner's not going to sit there and go through and say, "All right, Jose wrote 10 policies this year, and it seems like they all have the same last name. Well, we're going to bar him from the industry." Said no one ever. I wouldn't worry too
Okay.
much about that.
All right.
Yeah, yeah,
Does it make a difference if you're the beneficiary? For instance, I'm my mom's only child. I'm the beneficiary of everything.
yep. That doesn't matter either. So, the insurance commissioners aren't going to siphon through beneficiaries. It's, in my opinion, a little bit of a hogwash per se in regards to what you're told by certain organizations. I don't see a controlled business concern. Never have. Just working for carriers for so long, we've never canceled appointments because someone wrote their friends and family. It's usually just a rite of passage when it comes to initially starting in the business. You want to start with the people you're most comfortable with. I have a different, frame of reference or mindset. Like, the first people I go to is not my friends and family because I would rather mess up on people I don't know, rather than my friends and family, because I'm going to see them more often than I am these other people. And I saw a good phrase the other day. Uh, you're more likely to have your business partners or your business become friends and your friends become business. So
Mhm.
I think that's the other thing is that like I loathe the idea of people sitting around waiting for leads, and no offense if anyone does that. But I think that there's so many opportunities to get out in the community and different ways to really prospect that we'll talk about another time. Um, but to ultimately get out in your community, as I mentioned before, we have a noble profession. Let's make it a noble profession. Go out and see people, go out and talk to people, and just really have that opportunity to grow your place of your community, I should say, because the more people know what you do there, the more references you're going to get. And like, I had my kid's Cub Scout master ask me to write a policy on him. My next door neighbors had me write a policy on them. The more people know what you do, the more they're going to refer you out. It's just a waiting game in the insurance industry. If you can pass the first 2 years, that's probably the toughest. I'm actually going to pick on Anne because Anne is what? How long have you been in the business, Anne? If you're still there, I see you there.
If I make it till May, 4th, the
Yeah.
44 years.
So 44 years. So Ann started when she was 5.
That's it.
So
That's it.
yep, yep. So Ann, from the tenured vet standpoint, what would you say is encouraging? Like, how long did it take? Because we've had conversations before where you literally said that at this point in time, you don't make any prospecting calls. You just have people calling you up. So how long did it take for you to get over that hump and really, kind of reap the rewards of working with your community?
Well, it takes a long time, but the first 2 years are really the toughest. And uh,
Yep.
and I was just texting Jose. I said, your family and friends are not going to make your living.
Yeah.
And because I can count on my hand how many of my family and friends have insurance with me, and for 44 years they know what I do, but that's
Yep.
okay. And
Yep.
um, and then when something happens or they get uninsurable, they'll call and say I should have talked to you sooner,
Yep.
but that's
Yep.
okay too. So but it's been a good ride. It's been very, I've been well blessed, and but I still work, and I still call people, but it's not as hard as it used to be. So
Yeah. And that's a great point. And statistics show it's the first 2 years before you'll have people who will, exit the business because they think it's too tough. You're gonna
right.
get your teeth kicked in. You're gonna have
That's right.
people tell you, I don't want this. It's a sham or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you start getting those conversations going more and more, yeah, and you develop the thicker skin, you develop the conversations or the rebuttals, and next thing you know, you're gonna win more than you lose.
You can't
But
take
it's
it
just
personal, and if it was easy, everybody would do it.
exactly, exactly. So, and I think that's the big thing. That's a great. They're not saying no to you, they're
That's
saying
right.
no to the policy and the product,
Yeah,
and
well,
so we
they
can't
got to
take it
love their
personal.
family to accept the
Exactly,
idea also.
exactly. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much.
Uh,
Tia, you had another question? I saw you go off mute.
Um, I don't know. I think I have a couple. Um, First question, repeat what you said when when you were talking to Jose and he's initially talking to someone,
Hmm.
and you asked if you wanted to buy or borrow, which I get,
Oh,
or buy or rent, and then it was
yeah.
income by 10 and then
Mhm.
basically
So
how you're doing the financial analysis part.
yeah, so if you're looking for a quick and dirty, and I apologize for using words like that, but
No, I get it.
yeah, something that's easy to remember is just 10 times your income. If
Mm-hmm.
you have a mortgage, how much is left on the mortgage, and then however many kids you have, just take that 150,000 per kid, just assuming for
Okay.
secondary education. So if I didn't make it home tonight, my kids could go to college, my wife could pay off the house, and she could live off of at least 10 years of what I earn today to take care of herself.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Uh,
So that's the easy way to do it.
Yeah, I think that was my question.
Yep. So I saw another question that came in. What do I say to an estate attorney referring me clients for insurance? What points should I mention to get this work to collaborate? So, if I could ask Jay, are you already getting those referrals, or what additional things are you looking for from the estate attorney?
Um, Phil, this is Preeti.
Hey, Preeti.
So he's ready to listen, and I have referred two clients, actually one client, and the other one is still in pending. He did the estate planning for him. He has the assets in different states, and he wants
Yep.
restaurant. So now I got nothing from that. So next thought I had is like, so why don't you refer me a clients when you go through the estate planning if they don't have the insurance or
Mhm.
Roths or annuities?
Mhm.
So that way, but I'm not, he said uh, he cannot split the comms because he's not licensed, but he's ready to do the license. But however, what does he has to tell to the clients to have an insurance?
Well, that's a great question. And I'll be honest, I actually had so I went up to Chicago, middle of last year, I think it was, maybe August. Or no, it was October, right before football started, and I met with the organization of estate attorneys and financial professionals and things like that. I was invited to an event, and I talked to him. I was like, hey, you guys have an insurance person, this or that, and would love to help you out. I could do X, Y, and Z. And they said, well, typically how we get our clients is partnering with insurance professionals and financial advisors because they're the ones doing all the estate planning stuff, and then they come to us for the documentation. So if you have someone in the reverse, where they don't have a lead generation source of like someone to give someone the business for insurance, and you're kind of at that point where they're even willing to get their license, then what I would say is that much like we talk about with building out an agency or a hierarchy structure, Mr. or Mrs. Attorney, if I could show you a way to add additional revenue to your practice where I'll do all the heavy lifting, you just bring the clients, and we all win together, would you be interested? And then at that point, uh, really, I would say the biggest thing that I do is you talk about story selling. Okay. Products don't sell, it's stories. So if you said to that person, hey, like the story that I talk about a lot is still around the lifetime gift exemption because we have pretty much 1 year left before it drops. So do you have clients right now who are looking to maximize this gift exemption before the year is over? Can I show you a way that we help clients on our end leverage the estate gifting rules to maximize and preserve the wealth of their estate, like the Kennedys and the Rockefellers. And I can help with that too. Okay. So that's my expertise. You don't have to know it all. You just have to know enough to be dangerous and then partner with the people who can get it done. Um, so that would be one thing. Another thing would be, you have clients coming in working on their estate planning. Are they having a hard time trying to, focus on not only their estate, but, preservation of their current assets? We have plans that can help them, through insurance products, whether annuities or life insurance, that can help them preserve their assets today, secure it, and also give more to the kids. So it's just developing a few stories for them. So when they have a client, they think Preeti and it's game time as
Mhm.
opposed to someone else. So that's what I would say. And if you want, if it's if because obviously I'll be in Dallas tomorrow. If we have time, early next week, along those lines, I would love to, kind of sit in on the meeting and
Right.
see what we could do.
Yeah, sure, Phil. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. So, I know that we're at about an hour and 12 minutes ish. Anyone have any other questions, comments, raw bursts of emotion, anything you want to see or hear? Um, no? Okay. Well, I know from my standpoint, so I did about an hour and a half last week, about the same here this week. I gotta pack and get ready I got an early flight tomorrow. So if there's no other questions, I'll kind of wrap for the night. But what I will remind you is again, we're gonna do this again next week. If you have clients, case design, anything you want to go through, like we did with Jose, would gladly do that for anybody. If you have teams and you want to bring the teams in, this is all basics, general information that anyone can listen and work on. Tomorrow, 4 o'clock Central, I'm gonna do a presentation. So I should I should have it up. If not, I'll have a calendar up of all of the trainings that we're gonna do on Thursdays. Is it up here yet? It will be soon. So I'll have a calendar up here on the Valor site. And what we'll have is different training topics. So tomorrow is differences just between term and whole life, not IUL, but traditional, tried and true whole life insurance. And we'll continue doing, Wednesday night, Thursday afternoon, Wednesday night, Thursday afternoon. This is more nitty gritty stuff. Thursdays are meant for, the training on product sales ideas. So, come with questions, bring your team, bring anybody who's ready and willing to learn. But, I appreciate everybody who jumped on. I know it's late for a lot of you. And if you need anything, just give me a call, email, text, or whatever. For my Dallas folk, I'll be there tomorrow, 16th to the 22nd. I have a late night flight on the 22nd, but I will be kind of locked down from the 18th to the 20th. So see what we can do. Thank you guys. You have a great rest of your evening. And as always, appreciate the partnership. So take care and I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, Phil. See ya.
Thank you. You have a good night.
See you
Thank you.
guys. Bye.